Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're diving into one of the most essential topics for anyone learning Kotlin, data types. Whether you're building apps or working with data, or just exploring Kotlin, understanding how the language handles different types of information is key. We'll break down the basics of primitive and non-primitive types and what they are, and how they work, and why they matter for your Kotlin projects. By the end of this video, you'll have a solid foundation for managing everything from numbers and characters to more complex data like arrays and strings. So if you're ready to level up your Kotlin skills, make sure you stick around. And hey, if you're new here, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more awesome programming content. Let's get started. First off, Kotlin gives you a wide range of data types, and we can split them into two main groups, primitive and non-primitive types. Primitive data types in Kotlin like int, character, and boolean represent basic values and are optimized for performance. Non-primitive types such as string, array, and custom objects are more complex and can have multiple values or reference other objects. While primitive types are stored in stack memory, non-primitive types are stored in heap memory, making them less efficient but more versatile. Now let's get into primitive types and let's talk about the basics of the everyday types you'll be using. But before that we get into that, here's a basic graph and picture of how kind of breaking up data types. So you, of course, on the left you have your primitive types, and on your right you have your non-primitive types such as string and array. And what this doing is just giving you a better visual of kind of where they all stack up and what they do. Just another visual. And then on the left here we have kind of a basic structure of what creating a data type in Kotlin would look like. So here you have your name, so you can name this anything such as number, name, depending on what your data type is. Then your data type, you could do int, double, and then for your initial value, that would be anything with a number if you're using int or double. But if you decide to use character, that would be a letter such as like A and B. Now let's get into the primitive data types and talk about them. Starting off, we'll have int, which is a 32-bit integer, which you use for numbers like 1, 42, negative 100, 50, all numbers kind of like that. Then you have long, which is a 64-bit integer for even bigger numbers. Short, a smaller 16-bit integer, useful for if you're tight on memory. Byte, which is even smaller than short, is just 8 bits, usually for raw data. Double, which is a 64-bit floating point number that you use with decimals, such as 3.14, anything with the decimals, typically when you're using double. Float is very similar to double, but it's only 32 bits, so it's slightly less precise. Character holds a single character like A, B, C. And then lastly, you have boolean, which is a true and false value, perfect for logical conditions. So when you need to store a number or a letter or a true or false condition, these are your go-tos. Now let's get into the non-primitive types. Before we kind of talk about them, here you have your array and kind of what an array would look like, and then how the numbers you're storing in your array are allocated in memory. So in arrays, it starts with 0, not 1, so don't get confused with that. So it goes 2 instead of being 1 would be 0, so it'll go 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So if you have 5 things in an array, it actually ends with 4, but it still technically has 5 things in the array, but it's counted to 4 because we start with 0. Then in your string, you can kind of see where your string would go, how you'd write it, and where you would format it. Now let's kind of get into them a little bit more. These are where things start to get a bit more interesting with the data types, with non-primitive data types. So starting with string, this one is for text. In Kotlin, strings are immutable, meaning once you create them, they can't be changed. So if you're working with anything like Hello World, strings are your friend. Now moving to arrays. An array is a collection that holds multiple values of the same type. Whether you need to store a list of numbers, strings, or objects, arrays are super useful. And there you have it, folks. We just went through all the important data types in Kotlin. In the next video, we'll be going over operators and control structures. See you in the next one, and don't forget to like that like button and subscribe. See you in the next one.